Oh, well, okay. So, I think we have to be honest and say that cricket wasn't necessarily, the late Queen's favourite sport. She would come and of course it was the highlight of people who were playing on that particular day. And it was usually when England were playing Australia, that she'd come out, the players would line up and she'd come in and she'd shake everybody's hand. There was a time when Dennis Lillee, the Australian fast bowler, famously asked her for her autograph, as she approached him, and she said, "Oh no, I can't do that," sort of thing. But then, shortly afterwards, Dennis received in the post an autographed photograph, which is rather nice, of the two of them meeting. So, that's a nice touch. But, and she would sit there in the committee room and the standard would fly. And she'd watch for a while and have lunch and then potter off. So it was Prince Philip, really, who was the main cricket enthusiast. But no, going back a while, so 2001, it was some anniversary of Test Match Specials. I'm not sure what it was, but of course part of our programme very much is getting cakes. We've had a couple of...
Large part of...
Well, it is. We had a very good one for the World Cup final, actually, because fittingly, it was Camilla, actually, who sent us one for that, which was an absolute work of art. An extraordinary cake. But anyway, in 2001, we were invited to go down to that committee room, and we'd been forewarned that we were going to be presented with a cake by Her Majesty the Queen. So there's a fair amount of tension, and then going back in those days, Peter Baxter was the producer, there was Henry Blofeld, Chris Martin Jenkins, Bill Frindle and I, and down we went into the committee room, which is, and you can imagine amongst the members of Lord's Pavilion, it was rammed, there were lots of people moving around. And suddenly, before you realise it, there you are, you're lined up, and you're looking 3 or 4 yards to your right in my case, and there is Her Majesty the Queen, holding this huge, great Dundee cake. I mean, it was a monstrous thing. Huge on this plate. And you stand there and you shuffle round a bit, and there's lots of people going on sort of to your left, people mooching round and so on, and photographers. Happily, a photographer took this picture, and I've got it at home. It's a very special photograph for me, because it was taken just at the time, the right time. Because what do you say? What do you say to the Queen when she's standing there? She's looking at you, and she's got a massive great Dundee cake in her hands, because conversation is difficult. And it went a bit quiet. And so I'm afraid I asked the inevitable question, and I said, thank you, ma'am. Did you bake it yourself? and it was at that moment that the photographer took the picture, because her face breaks into a lovely laugh. Chris Martin Jenkins, who's standing next to me, is pulling a face like, ooh, one of those sort of faces.
Yeah.
And she looked at me straight in the eye, and she said, "Not personally," she said, "but specially." And there must have been in the room a journalist, because it was it was a headline in the Telegraph the next day: "Queen bowls Aggers a Googly," and it recounted the story of her sort of throwing that back up. It made me feel it's a stupid thing to ask, but it made me feel about a centimetre high. It was a lovely put down in a very humorous sort of a way. Everyone had a good laugh, and that was it. So yes, that was that particular occasion.
Most importantly, how was the cake?
Amazing, and we lugged it back to the commentary box, and of course, I mean, you handed it out to everybody, all the media down there and so on. It was great, but it's part of Test Match Special, isn't it, to receive cakes? But it's not every day that we got one from the Queen.
Am I right in thinking you commentated on a game with 2 of her grandchildren as well?
Yes, and funnily enough, in those days, they were playing in the same team, which I perhaps shouldn't say these days, but yes, William and Harry, and I was commentating on this game in the shadow of Windsor Castle. It wasn't a pretty sight. I do remember William dropping an absolute sitter of a catch off Harry's bowling. He was at mid-on, and it was a goober, really, and down it went. But funnily enough, I heard you talking to Cookie and to Matt Dawson there, when I got my gong, it was actually William who was presenting it, and the fellow who sort of officiates came up, and we were chatting about it. I said, "Who's doing it today?" And he said, "Oh, it's the Duke of Cambridge." And I said, "Oh, God, I've seen him play cricket." I said, "It was terrible." We're having a little small talk chat, Anyway, this fellow he's the one who whispers in the ear. So if whoever's doing and handing out the gongs, there's this fellow who, while you're walking in, just whispers a few words into the ear of the person who's handing it out, just to remind them really of who this person is that's coming in. So, line up a few questions. So I did my little bow, approached William, who said, "You have been talking to that lot back there about my cricket, haven't you?" And so that broke the ice absolutely perfectly. And we were away. But no, cricket is, you've got to be honest. So the Queen would come and she would do that, and it was great for those players lined up to meet her. But yeah, she wouldn't fill in a scorecard. I don't think during her time at Lord's.
No, but as we keep hearing from so many people, it says everything about her, that she showed the interest and had the conversations that she did. Jonathan, thank you so much. That
Absolutely.
is our cricket correspondent, Jonathan Agnew.